Alright, welcome back to the free Game Jam template. In this video, we're going to go over the player and player controller. So let's hop right into it. If I select our player right here, or I go through main assets, player, if I use this little drop down, I can see there's camera holder, camera shifter, main camera, item slot. So main camera is our camera that we see in the game, or we see through in the game. We have our item slot for picking up objects. These objects will become more useful in the future when we add effects like camera shake and other things. But for now, they're just holding the camera. If we close all these down and go back to our player, inside of here we have our mesh renderer. We can easily turn off our player's skin or the bean. And then also inside of our player over here, we have our clothes. If we want to turn the clothes back on and see our clothes, we can do that right here. If you want to easily add more clothing to your player, you can do that right here. Just add it into this, and you can turn that off and on over here in the inspector. So if I uncheck this, we won't see those. And now back in our player, if we go down, we can turn off the mesh renderer. We can turn it back on if we want to see our player. We have our capsule collider for physics, and we have rigid body for calculating physics. So this is how we collide with things, and this is how the gravity and mass of everything ourselves is applied in the world. Below that, we have our player controller script, and below that, we have more things that I'm working on. Footstep sounds for adding texture-based footsteps and speed-based footsteps, and then we have our audio source for it. Also, energy system that I'm working on, and slope correction. But I'm also adding the slope correction into this, so I might not even need this, but that's just more for later. You don't have to worry about it. If you see this, you can mess with it if you want, or just leave it checked off for it not to affect your player. Now, inside the player controller, we have main settings, walk speed. It does what it sounds like. So when you're walking around in the game, it's how fast you move. Run speed is the shift button, so how fast you run. Jump is obvious. When you hit space, you jump, right? Boing. So when you jump, this is the height or the force behind the jump. Then your double jump. So if you jump when you're in the air, this is the force behind that. So you can change that setting for a higher or lower double jump. If you don't want a double jump, you can turn that off right here by unchecking this. And if you want your mouse look sensitivity or your look sensitivity to be higher, you just turn this up, and if you want it lower, you turn down. Now, slope limit, this is new. This is what I'm currently working on. I'll just explain it to you real quick. Here you can see a bunch of different slopes, right? They all have different angles. So this one is set at 35 and this one is set at 45. And just to demonstrate what the difference is, I'll go ahead and hit play. Now, when I'm in here and I go down this slope, right, it's very steep, so I naturally slide down it. And then if I try to climb it, I slide back down. Or if I run into it, I slide back down. Now this one, I can walk up it, or I can run up it, but I don't actually slide down it, which is good. That's our goal. We want to be able to walk on surfaces that we can walk on and slide down surfaces that are too vertical. And that's how this works. Now, this other thing we have here is just for trying to fix part of the broken part here. Currently, the slope limit is working, but the momentum is not being carried through. Like I want it to hit and keep going, or in best scenario, when it's something like this, you could like slide right off the edge, right? So the goal is to keep sliding when we have a lot of speed when we hit the ground for at least a little bit, or like a setting that controls that. So that's the goal of momentum settings. Now, another cool thing about this right now is you can jump up this, which is kind of cool. I don't know if I want to take that out or leave it, but currently the player can jump up vertical slopes, which is cool, I guess. I might leave it or make it an option, but for now I'm trying to work on the momentum of the slope. And yeah, we'll go from there once I get the momentum working properly. And let's go back into the options of the player. So you can see under our, if I could find it, where are we at? Slope settings, slope limit, slope momentum. That's what I'm trying to work on. It's not currently working. So momentum and friction are not currently working right now. So slope limit is what's working on limiting the player from being able to walk up a slope that's too vertical. Air control, that is exactly what it sounds like. If you want it on and off, you can check it on and off. And the air control speed is how fast you move or how much control you have in the air. Now, crouch settings, that's the C button on the keyboard. It allows you to crouch right here if you turn that off and on. Crouch height, how far you crouch. Crouch speed and smooth speed. Speed is how fast you crouch, and smooth speed is how fast the camera moves. So if we want the camera to smoothly move, we set that setting here. Additional settings are gravity multiplier. If you don't have this on, it kind of feels floaty, so I add a gravity multiplier to make the player feel like they're really being pulled down, like gravity's actually working. Ground check, be careful messing with this. This affects your double jump and your ground detection. So if you increase this too far, you'll think that you're on the ground always, even when you're not. So you'll have a double jump active even when you're not actually resetting on the ground. And then your death height is right below that, your ground check. And this is a cool feature. It lets you set the height at which the player can fall in the world, which is good for if they fall off the map and you want them to respawn. It just respawns them based on the height. Now, another cool thing is below that we have our mouse lock. If you want the mouse to disappear, you check this on. So when I click into the game and my mouse disappears so I can run around, that's right there. Now, camera holder you don't need to worry about. That's just over here, and it's referencing it for our player to be able to use properly. But below that, we have our distance, height, and smooth, max pitch, and min pitch. These are very important for setting up different styles of games. So just to give you an idea, if we go into play mode, I'll show you a little bit about how to set up different types of games. Here we're in first person, we can move around. If we Alt-Tab to move our mouse outside of the screen and look at these settings, if I increase this, we'll go into third person. So that's cool because now we have third person and we can walk around and work like a third person object, right? Now if we want to go far back, we can do this and just increase that. And I might add a control for this to be more like Roblox, so we could go first person and then we could push back and go third person and first person. That would be kind of cool. It's not how I have it set right now, but maybe in the future I'll add that ability. And then we can just look around and walk around. Now, if we want to change the actual smooth speed of our camera, we can right here, but I like the way it feels at 0.125. Camera height doesn't do anything right now. I have to work on that. But it's basically the height at which the camera focuses on, so up and down. Max pitch and min pitch. So you'll notice if I try to go over my player right here, I stop. That's the maximum and the minimum pitch. So it won't let me go over the player, which is good. Now these need to be changed if you're trying to do a top down, and I'll show you that in a second. Aside from that, if we go closer in on our character, right, and we go down to camera shift, here we can shift to the side to get more of like an over the shoulder view. So now we have more of like a Fortnite style view. And yeah, that's how you'd set up something like that. You can shift either side. And if we want, there might be an option in the future for controlling this with the player actual in-game controls so they could shift their shoulder look. But for now, it's just for you to set up on your own if you want a certain look. What else do we have here? If we want to control the player's ability to turn the camera, we can do that in the orbit lock. So here, if I lock these, you'll notice I can no longer turn my character. So if I lock yaw, I can no longer spin around the character. If I lock pitch, I can no longer go up and down. So here, if I wanted to lock a certain height or pitch to the character, I could do it right there. And lock roll will prevent me from rolling around, but it's not actually, like, we don't really roll the character in the player script, so that's just kind of there right now. I might actually make that work for if I'm trying to add like flying mechanics or things like that. So yaw angle and pitch angle, what are these? If I want the yaw angle to be off, I can do this. So I could create like an off angle to it. And I could do the same thing with pitch, but that's up and down. And there's a reason for this. So if we can't move like this and we want our angle to be slight, like we want to see slightly in front of our character where we're going, we could change this angle to see higher. And then we could change this angle to see around our player a little bit. So then it's like an infinite runner this way, but we would see kind of in front of our player. Or we could set these to 0, and we'll see this other thing here we can do, which is cool. So what we do here is now we have it locked in place, right? And based on our camera distance, it's how far back we are. And we could actually lock our player's Z, so we can no longer go forward and back, but now we can go left and right like a platformer. So we got that, and we could create a platformer if we wanted. And we could go forward and back. Now, if I wanted to create an infinite runner based in these axes, all I'd have to do is change my yaw angle, and now I could only go forward and back with this. So that's one cool thing you can do there. And then you could also make it auto run. So if you made it auto run, the character will automatically try to run, but it has to be not actually running into the Z. I actually need to fix this where we have a choice of what axes we're running on. So once I put it where there's three options here, you'll be able to choose which axes you're auto running on. But for now, it just auto run does work. It just only works in one axis. So if we did 90 here, we're now behind the player, and we can pretty much run forward and back, and we could create an auto running script where our character would automatically run through a level, and we could change the pitch angle here if we wanted to see above them, and we could change what we want to get what we want out of it. Now, if we wanted to create a side-scrolling platformer, again, we would just have to change the yaw angle. So zero this out, and now we can move left and right to get our side-scrolling platformer. And if we wanted more like Diablo, we would just turn off lock Z, and now we can move around, and we could change the pitch angle to get more of a top or 45 look to it to then like do whatever we want inside the game as a platformer style game, or not a platformer, a Diablo style game. And then what else? We could also do top down by going and increasing this to our pitch, max pitch to 90. And then we increase this to 90, and now we're top down, giving us the ability to walk around and move top down style. So that's a cool thing with that. So yeah, that's kind of how you approach the player controller. And then I like to change and mess with settings while in play mode, so that way I don't actually break anything. If you happen to break anything, just back out of the game and reload the game without saving. And my suggestion is take note of all the settings before you mess with it, so that you can easily return to the default settings. At some point, I'll have player controller prefabs, so we'll have like top-down prefab, and we'll have different types of player prefabs, but I'm not going to create prefabs until I have the player working fully, and that way you'll have like working prefabs based on the same player controller, so they'll all function the same way, but they'll just have certain settings applied to essentially make just drag and drop easier for setting up the player. Yeah, so that's where the player controller is, and that's what we got going on. I'm hoping to knock out momentum and movement down slopes, and yeah, keep working on the player controller. Got to fix a few things that just jumped out at me, like the camera height and the auto run. I need to have which axes we're running on, but yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to kind of create a template that allows us to quickly make different types of games and start just like jumping into game jams, and so people can have fun and not have to worry about the base setup of everything. This is my way of setting it up. There's lots of ways to do it, but that's up to you. This is just how I like to do it. So if you're doing it a different way, you're right too. Just if you want to use this asset, this is how I like to do it. And yeah, that's the free game jam template. Check back for more later. Constantly trying to work on it, and I hope you enjoyed the video.